Well, good morning. This is Dr. Bill Williams on the Influencers Podcast, coming to you live stream from Atlanta, Georgia. And today we have a lot of fun in store for you. We have none other than Dar Dixon from the West Coast of California, and he's going to be talking about the topic that's most near and dear to his heart. And I hope at the end of the show it'll be your heart. It'll be the art of being Dar. So with that, let's bring on Dar Dixon. Come on down.
Oh my God, I'm on the Influencers Podcast. Yay!
Start influencing us, so Dar. Let's have the real story. Everybody wants to know from the very beginning. I know. What is the art of being Dar?
So, the art of being Dar. Some of my friends thought I was being a little bit arrogant when I said that. And then when I explained it, like I'm going to explain it to you, it'll make a little more sense. I was born in Tehran. I'm half Iranian. My father was is a full-blooded Iranian guy. Now he's American. Mother's an American woman. Moved probably over 80 times. I'm the oldest of three boys. All three of my brothers are gay men. We moved back to Iran when I was probably about 12 years old, and we ended up escaping the Iranian Revolution, and literally only had the clothes on our back. We lost everything we owned. A few years later in my 20s, I zigged when I should have zagged, and I got caught up in this pseudo-religious doomsday cult. Now, I just thought it was a great group of people, but things slowly unwound, and it was like, oh, this is not good. But by then, it was too late. I managed to escape from that, found out that I had been brainwashed, and I'd suffered something they call PTSD. Did not know what that was until the therapist was telling me the first time. And now I've been working in Hollywood for probably almost 30 years now. I am married to my wife, who's the youngest daughter of Reverend Ralph David Abernathy, who, along with Uncle Martin Luther King Jr., co-founded the Civil Rights Movement. And so there's an art to being whoever you are, certainly is for me. And that's where the title of the show, The Art of Being Dar, comes from. How's that?
I like it. I got to know who you were around, and who inspired you all within 2 minutes. So well done.
Thank you, sir.
When you talk about coming from Iran,
yep,
and you come to America, that's a great story. Just from the very start, I worked with 3 different Iranian nationals who became American citizens, just as you did. And I find they're beautiful folks. They have been exquisitely talented in what they do. So some of the most talented people. I'm a dentist, and they work for me as dentist in my office. So very talented, very straightforward. And, I think it's been a credit to America to have so many great people coming across when there's a need. When you have a problem that America can help solve, that's one of the things that we've always been known for, is to take in people when they have troubles. And right now, there's never been a bigger need than now.
I would agree with you. Yes. I was born a naturalized citizen, although in Iran, I am considered a 100% Iranian citizen. Just FYI, for clarification. Yes, the people of Iran are some of the most beautiful people you'll ever meet. It pains me that since the revolution up until now, even now, you're one of the very few people who's ever said anything nice about Iranian people. When people travel to Iran, I remember Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain, had his show on CNN. And when he went to Iran, he loved it so much. He was so overwhelmed and taken by surprise, taken aback by the graciousness and the courtesy and the hospitality of the Iranian people, that he went back a second time. I don't think he did that to many other countries. So there you have it.
Yeah, traveling to other countries makes you see that we're all pretty much the same, and our leaders may not be the same. We may not operate under the same systems, but down at the normal level where people live, we're definitely the same.
I would agree with you. I'll say these 2 things. There's a huge difference between the people of a country and the government. Huge difference. Never conflate the two. The second thing is my My late father-in-law was a great man, obviously, did many great things for this country and across the world. He had many great sayings, but the one I like the most, to what you just said, he said, we hate one another because we fear one another. We fear one another because we don't know one another. We don't know one another because we won't sit at the table and break bread. Because when you sit at the table and break bread, you find out that we have more commonalities than differences.
So, Dar, you alluded to something, and I want to get you to go into that. Something that happened that when you zigged, you should have zagged. So,
Did I
what's
say
that
that?
greatest failure story, and what did you learn, and how did you recover from it?
Man, okay, so let's keep this tight. I learned way too much to encapsulate in just a few minutes here. But the biggest overarching thing is that you have to know yourself. The ancient Greeks had it right, as far as I'm concerned. Know thyself, right? Shakespeare said the similar thing, to thine own self be true. And most people don't take the time to really truly know themselves on a granular level. And had I done that, had I been in that headspace, had that been encouraged throughout my life, and I'm not blaming anyone, but even if I had the courage to do it or the push to do it, I could have avoided that whole thing. Now, at the same time, I'm so grateful that I went through that experience. I don't recommend anyone go through a cult. It took 20 years of my life, but I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have done what I've done so far. And I certainly wouldn't know myself to the level I do now.
Well, failure can happen without us realizing we're in the middle of the fail. You only recognize it
Yes.
when you get out.
Yes.
So I've been there and done some things in business that ended up not being perfectly smart. And when I got out of it, I'd lost a lot of money, but I had a lot of fun. So there's always a silver lining to every cloud. And I went to Russia, Kazakhstan, and Indonesia, Singapore, all kind of places, chasing gold, chasing oil wells. I mean, I was doing some fun things being a dentist. It doesn't seem to fit, right?
Not at all.
So my failure stories would be very equal to yours, just in a different context. I was following and chasing the end of that rainbow. So let's talk about the failures that others have. What do you think, based on your life experience, what are the 3 reasons people fail? What's your common denominator?
So let's rephrase that question. I think that's a great starting point. And it may sound trite, it may sound cheesy, and that's okay. If you realize that there's no such thing as failure, there are only lessons that you learn along the way, or lessons that you learn throughout anything you do, then you've immediately alleviated yourself and lifted all that weight off of your shoulders, which allows you, as you just said so beautifully, to have fun doing what you're doing. You lost money, you lost some time, you lost whatever, but what did you gain, right? What did you gain? There's very few things you have any control over in this world. I found that out to be true. In fact, I spent a lot of time talking to therapists and psychiatrists and mental health experts about it, and I came up with 4 things. You can control what you think about or what you focus on. You can control what meanings you assign to anything that happens to you, people, places, or things, right? Because nothing in and of itself has any meaning. You can control. The third thing you can control is how you feel, your emotional state. And the fourth thing is you can control the people that you attract to you and the people that are attracted to you. Outside of that, the best you have is influence. So relax, go do what you're going to do, and know that you're going to fail. You're going to fail 100%. Last thing I'll say on that. Who here walked the first time they tried? Show of hands. Anyone? Right. Nobody did. You fell down 100,000 times, but you just kept getting encouraged. You kept getting encouraged. You didn't let anything get you down. No one said, well, the kid can't walk. That's it. Oh, well. Approach life that way.
Well, I like how you took the question about failure and turned it into success lessons, because really that's what people want. They want to know how to get out of the hole, not just what causes you to fall in the hole.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the biggest. I studied and read. I read a lot of books from across a wide range of topics and a wide range of industries. And there's one common denominator that I found. It's in between the lines. It's not the actual line on the page or the words the person, the author, is saying. And the thing that it is that I found is the common denominator is that the most successful people always give themselves permission to fail, and they have developed a level of self-compassion for themselves. And those two things are invaluable. And it goes right back into giving yourself a break. Did you screw up? Yeah, you're going to screw up. That's just how it is. You're human. You're not going to avoid that. That's not going to happen. But what did you learn from it?
When you look back and you think about all the things that you went through,
yes, sir,
particularly the 20 years in the cult, what do you find now motivates you internally to keep going?
Well, man, it's early out here. I've got a pretty high motor. Do I get down every once in a while? Sure, everybody does. But I think about where I've been and what I've overcome, and that keeps me going forward. And then, like it or not, maybe it might not be the best thing, but I'm choosing to use it. When I stop and think about losing 20 years of my life, and those were the young years, when you have more energy, when you look prettier, when you have more hair, all that stuff. And I use that as fuel for my fire to keep going forward.
So your life motto, your company motto, what would that be?
My motto is art is life and life is art. I embraced the artistic side of myself a long time ago, but I kept it way down, quiet, and I wouldn't allow it to come out. It wasn't really encouraged in my family. It wasn't discouraged, but it certainly wasn't encouraged. And it wasn't until after all of the stuff I just mentioned to you that I realized that, I've got to be true to myself. And that part of that is me becoming, I always wanted to be an actor. I always wanted to be in Hollywood. And so I was in my late 20s and I realized I got to do this. I mean, I've got to go do this. I can't die never having tried. And I got lucky. I booked my first audition. That almost never. The only person I know who that happened to was Eddie Murphy, except that was Eddie's own first and only audition from that point forward. I've had more than just one audition.
Very nice. Very nice. So your art is drama and stage work as opposed to working with colors in a palette.
Well, yes and no. My art is in the dramatic field. And in the dramatic field, you will have every emotion, right? There's, that you have the comedy and the drama masks from Commedia dell'arte, and really it's storytelling. And in storytelling, you use a wide variety of colors, and you use a wide variety of brushes. They're not actual colors. They're not actual brushes. They're voice tone. They're voice inflection. There's body posture. There's breathing patterns. There are angles. There are looks. You perform totally different in front of a camera than you would perform the same scene on a stage at a theater.
So you're painting the brush strokes in the mind of the audience.
I have to. Correct.
Makes sense. So we're going to get into talking about what you offer and what you have as products or services, and why would somebody take advantage of your services now as an individual, or are we still talking about stage work?
Great question. The shutdown, we are still in a pandemic, by the way. I know everyone likes to think we're over it. We're not. But when the shutdown happened, that cut 4 revenue streams for me. As you may imagine, that was tough. So I had to pivot, and I'm still in the middle of fleshing out that pivot. So I'm writing a memoir about my time in the cult. I'm a part of a documentary that a friend of mine who's in the cult with me, they're doing it on him. He, quick side note, became the first male supermodel, quite by accident, when he was in this cult. And he gave away $4.5 million, no receipts, to the cult. He's also a Princeton graduate with the economics major. That's the power of brainwashing. So that's what I'm doing right now. The hopes, not the hopes, but what I do out of that is I do public speaking engagements. I'll have consulting engagements that come from that. And I'm creating an intellectual property, or IP as they call it in my world. And I'll be writing movies. I'll be doing documentaries from this. I'll be creating books from this, games, virtual reality, augmented reality, all kinds of things.
So who would be your ideal client for this new expose or this new movie, this book that you're putting together?
Dr. Williams, that's a great question. And all marketers ask that question, right? And everyone's been taught how to market. And I certainly enjoy it. And I'm actually a student of and have employed the methods of direct response marketing, which some people, especially younger kids, think is internet marketing, which tickles me to no end. Those are actually direct response marketing things. I think my story in and of itself, at the risk of sounding arrogant, is strong enough on its own that it would naturally interest a wide swath of people. If I had to narrow it down, I would probably say that my demographic is between maybe 14 years of age up to, I'd say 60. That's a big demographic. And I would say the majority of them are female. Beyond that, I'm not sure. Time will tell. But that's what I see right now.
Any idea how you're going to find these people to reach out to them?
If you have any suggestions, I'm open to them.
There's the rub.
There's the rub, right? That is the rub. It's always the rub. And again, this goes back to the questions you asked me before. I don't know, man. I don't know. And anyone who tells you they do is either trying to sell you something or a damn fool, because you're going to have to keep on trying and iterate from that. Did that work? Good. Do more of that. That didn't work? Don't do that. Do something differently. I just don't know. That's the simple answer.
I gotcha. Well, being a dentist, there's not everybody in the world who wants to come use my services. So I'm pretty well aware of trying to find an audience to bring in and serve. It takes quite a bit of interesting experimentation, you might say, to become known and to be the top. We always worked on a concept of providing social proof. And if you can show that there's proof of product, in the hostage crisis world, they call it proof of life.
Exactly.
Well, you got to prove that you've got something valuable for people before they'll negotiate. So
true, very true. Another thing I've got to ask you: how many people come to see you when you're actually still? I don't know if you still practice with bad breath. I'm not talking.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. People think that it's a lot. I would say in my 46 years of active practice, I just retired this last year. I would say no more than 10 people out of 10, 20,000 that I saw did I draw back and go, this is difficult. 10 people out of 20, 30,000.
Okay.
So it's not bad.
I'm a teenager at heart. That's funny to me. Proof of life. The real proof of life. You always want to ask for proof of life, by the way. This is another thing that will help you achieve success faster and avoid a lot of pain. Let's say you're looking for your target audience and you're sitting down with a new prospect, whatever it is you do, okay? You always want to find out if they're real and they really are interested in your services, or if they're just stringing you along to get information out of you and play you against 3 other people they're talking to before they make their decision to buy whatever it is, right? So you want to find it, and you want to get the proof of life questions, right? So something like that would go, Susan, there are a lot of people out there who do dentistry, and specifically in your need, root canals. So what is it about me that makes you want to come and see me and have me do this root canal for you? And in her answer, we'll let you know if you're being played, shopped with, or she's actually serious. Saves you a ton of time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you either want to be the favorite, not the fool.
Absolutely. People will love to waste your time, and it's not intentional. It's just
what's true about people. They do research before they reach you personally.
Yeah.
And they know pretty much before they walk in the door that you're their favorite or their fool.
That's right.
And if you're the favorite, they're going to respond with questions that you can know. And if they're going to play you just to get validation and maybe satisfy their spouse or somebody else saying, I did check around, you'll know from the answer to the questions. And so that's a very good illustration that you raised. Good job.
Absolutely. Always listen. Always.
Do you have, it comes from active listening, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Active listening is a superpower. A superpower. People tell you everything, but 99% of the time you're not listening.
Do you have well-defined products and services that you are or will be offering?
I do. First of all, my acting services always. My writing services now are going to be more. I've directed in the past. I know I can do it. I've done it. I'm competent at it. Not my favorite thing in the world to do. I produce, of course, but to your point and to your audience, the speaking engagements, those are my services, and I speak about a wide variety of topics. And I speak in corporate America, speak at universities. Next month, I'm going to be speaking to a group of middle school students in Toronto, Ontario. They want to know about Hollywood. It's amazing. No matter what you do, at the end of the day, they want to hear about Hollywood and they want to hear about the cult. And then I'm going to be speaking in Chicago in April in Highland Park, something called Focus on the Arts. It's a 2-day, I don't know, can't call it a seminar. It's a 2-day event where the kids don't have to go to any classes and they get to have all types of artists come in and share with them what they do. So those would be my things.
I like it a lot. We're going to talk about the competition here in a minute, but Dar, one of my earlier podcasts, I interviewed a fellow and his focus was being able to discuss the 1980s and the impact of the 1980s on society. And he would take movies mainly in the 1980s and pick out parts of them that were illustrative of some point, and he would make that point. And he was a keynote speaker based on just a knowledge of the 1980s. Now that's competition that nobody's going to compete. But you have a competition in your field, explaining the arts, I'm sure. What is it that you do that puts you above the competition?
How old is this guy that does the 80s movies?
I think he's probably in his 40s.
Perfect. Okay. Interesting. That's a great niche. I mean, that's certainly something that no one's going to really compete with him about. How do I differentiate myself? Number one, and this goes for anyone listening to this, no one can do me. No one can do you. No one. I could try to be like you, Bill. There's no way in hell it's going to happen. I could affect your voice. I could affect your accent. I could affect your posture, your breathing patterns, all those things that I would do if I were going to create a character to be portrayed in a movie or a television series about you. But I can't do you. So if that's the case, relax and go do you. That's what I tell everybody. Keep doing you, man. Specifically, what do? is I just keep the foundations. I stick to the foundations of what I do because I learned this when I was a young man. I was a teenager. I was very fortunate. I got to go to the John Wooden, and he was the coach of the UCLA basketball team, and he won 11 national championships. A great coach. And I got to go to the Jerry West basketball camps. Jerry West is the NBA logo is designed after Jerry West. Coach Wooden's basketball camp, we did not shoot a single basket for the first 4 days of camp. My right hand to God. All we worked on was dribbling with our dominant hand, dribbling with our weak hand, passing the ball, chest passes, bounce passes, handling the ball behind our back, between our legs. And I'm talking about going the full length of the court, positioning ourselves, setting a pick, moving without the ball. All these fundamental, foundational things that make me and made me a much better basketball player. Well, that same dynamic applies to anything you do. By the end of the beginning of the fourth day, when he finally started to shoot the ball, man, let me tell you something. When you're dying to shoot the ball and that's all you do, and you don't focus on the fundamentals, passing and running and all those other stuff, when you shoot it, it becomes precious and you pay attention to it and you really focus on what you're doing. And my shot started to drop. So when I go in to speak to these kids, I'm going to focus on two things. The first thing is improvisation, because it's invaluable in performing, because you never know what's going to happen when you're on stage or when you're on a set. And you've got to be able to go with it and stay within the parameters of the story, the characters, and the location you're in. And that translates to life, and that translates to business. The second thing I focus on is active listening, which we just touched on. Really listening to what the other person is saying with your full undivided attention will make you more interesting as an actor. You don't even have to say a word. Just focusing on what you're saying and listening to it with full attention changes everything. You take that over into your business life and into your personal relationships, it will change everything too.
I believe when you were speaking about that improvisation, I couldn't help but think about Art Linkletter and his book, Kids Say the Darndest Things.
Yeah.
And when you're in front of them, if you can respond to them in kind, you got their attention. You got the audience.
That's right. Yeah. Kids are a tough crowd because they're moving fast. They'll ask you a question, they listen to the first 2 seconds, and they're on to the next topic.
Speaking of the next topic, online platforms is of interest to a lot of people. Does you or your company rely on specific platforms?
No, I don't. Thank God. I see too much people waste too much time on platforms. And here's the main message I would send to you. Remember, you do not own the platform. What am I talking about? You don't own Facebook. You don't. If you put your image, if you put a picture on there, if you put a video on there, guess who owns it? Facebook owns it, not you. Always remember that. That goes for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and anything else that comes down the line. The most valuable thing that you can own, and this goes back to marketing, is an email list or a list of physical addresses that you would mail physical products to. Most people don't do that, so email lists are what they get. And that email list is yours, and that's your platform that no one can take from you. And if you build a relationship with that audience of email list subscribers, however you choose to do it, through a newsletter or video clips you send or a podcast or whatever it may be, and even if you you capture them from these other platforms, that's the most valuable thing you can have.
What if you could have a platform where you totally owned all of your own material and they never would share it with anybody without your permission, or you had total control?
I mean, that would be cool, but that's a huge undertaking. That's a huge undertaking. I've thought about that already a long time ago. My time is better spent creating intellectual property that I own and I can sell and license and create from. Just that's me. You're asking me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying there's value in having your own control, and you did identify that other people control it. It's not so valuable.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I am aware that there is a platform available, which one day we'll share that with the world. Not
I
today.
can hear it in between the lines. I'm not going to say anything. I want to hear when you're going to share that.
How about noon today?
Okay.
You came onto the show on a great day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Noon today.
Noon today. You heard it here first.
Tell me about delivering that 5-star client experience when you're working with clients, whether working on the stage or working with individuals. How do you do that?
I will tell you how through a story about something I did when, ironically, I was in the cult. The cult leader decided it's just a lot of BS. But what he wanted was he wanted workers to help paint and build this house that we were going to build down in North Carolina. We were based out of New York City in the beginning. So I became a painter, a house painter, an apartment painter. And I'd never worked with my hands in my life. And I didn't know anything about painting. And I did not want to do it. In that business, we quickly found that the way to make money was to market ourselves to the affluent, people with money, rich people, for another lack of a better term. And so we did that. We were really good at it. And the way we succeeded, gave this 5-star customer service, was that we did just that. We under-promised and over-delivered. So, for example, when we went to, I'm not going to name drop, but we had some very wealthy and well-to-do clientele. And I went into this one very well-known lady. Her husband had developed this. Anyway, I went into her apartment. It was like 20 rooms and 20 bathrooms. It was the entire second floor, the 5th floor, whatever the devil it was, of this big building on Central Park West. And before we started anything, I met the housekeeper. We talked. And I made the housekeeper feel like she was the lady of the house, which got her full and undivided attention. She's looking at me like, oh, wow. Just stand here for a second. I'll go get the madam. And she went and got the lady, and we talked. We discussed what she wanted to do. And before I did anything, this was in the 80s, I had a little disposable camera. You remember those things, Bill, right? Took pictures of the entire room. Everything, the floor, the walls, the ceiling, where everything was. Excused myself, went down to the drugstore, got the film developed in less than an hour, which is what you did in those days. Bought a little cheap, inexpensive photo album, and I put the pictures when I got them into the photo album. And now I've got a blueprint of what the room looks like when I'm finished. And then, before doing anything else, I brought up something they call, I don't know what they call it these days, but we call it a sisal paper. It was a very heavy absorbent paper. And we taped off the entire floor with this paper, and then put heavy 4 mil thickness plastic, which is a very heavy plastic, on top of that paper, and taped that off all over every square inch of the floor. And then removed all the furniture, removed all the paintings, removed all the plants, removed all the rugs, everything out of the room. And now I've got a tabula rasa, a blank slate in there, and I can go in there and take care of the room. When they saw me do that, when they saw me take the pictures, and when they saw me come back with my little photo album, I had them hook, line, and sinker. And all the tension they had just went, psh. So I try to do the same thing with whatever I do. I always under-promise and over-deliver.
Preparation before the beginning, that's a real key.
Yeah.
So how do you convert these clients to brand ambassadors to speak in your behalf?
I pay them a lot of money.
Money talks.
I'm kidding.
2 cents per YouTube click.
Yeah, I don't play that game. I think it's, listen, it's not my thing. And I'm sure it's going to be something that I will focus on in the future. Uh, it's not right now. I've been fortunate enough to be able to get hired and work in front of a camera, and you know, you have a team of people doing that. And so, like these questions you're asking me, and now that I'm doing more of what I've been talking about, speaking engagements and consulting, and you know, the writing the book and having to do my own blurbs and do videos and podcasts like this, then I have to do everything on my own, which gets to be it's a little overwhelming sometimes.
Change hats pretty often.
Yeah, you know, I'm in a lot of hats, and you know, I have to try to figure out what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. What's the best use of my time? What's not the best use of my time? So, give me your question real quick again. I'll answer it straight.
Talking about brand ambassadors before.
Brand ambassadors, you know, listen, if you do a good job and you listen carefully to what people are saying and you make them feel important, you've already won the game no matter what you're doing, unless you just are terrible at what you do.
So tell me, Dar, what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful that I'm here with you right now. I'll tell you what I do every single day. I'm serious about that. You can't be angry. You can't be resentful. You can't be jealous. And those are all very human emotions, and we all have them. I used to try to pretend that I never got guilty or jealous or angry. Not true. If you're grateful, those things disappear. And so every day I start my day off with that. Think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. And it doesn't have to be anything mind-shattering. You don't have to be like earth-shattering. It can be a simple thing. Man, I'm glad that my nose is clear and I can breathe and my lungs can take in the air. I'm grateful that I just woke up out of bed. You know what I'm grateful for? Oh God, my back hurts this morning. I'm grateful that I can feel that. Start there and keep going forward.
I've never heard anybody say they're grateful for a backache, but you know, if you can't get up and walk because you're numb, there's something to be grateful for pain.
Okay.
Tell me about your 20-year-old self. If you're sitting there consulting with him, saying, "Here's what you should do, son," what would you tell yourself?
I was 22 when I met this guy that ran this cult. So I would have told my 22-year-old self, "Run, MF, run."
Run, Forrest, run.
Run, Forrest, run. But see, I really wouldn't have said run, because as crazy as that was, I am grateful for every minute of it. As painful it was, I'm grateful for every minute of it. I'm telling you, man, adversity is your friend. My 20-year-old self, go to college, go to university, whatever you want to call it. Pick a subject that interests you. Don't worry about whether you're going, oh, is that something you're going to do for the rest of your life? Oh, you want to be an accountant? Study accounting. No. If you like 17th century French literature, don't listen to anybody else. Go to school and get a degree in 17th century French literature. Why? 2 reasons. College is meant to teach you critical thinking skills and to build a network. And that network of friends and colleagues that you will build in college are invaluable for the rest of your life. That's really what I would have told myself.
All right. Thank you so much for that recommendation. Let's jump to the being impactful. Why is it important for you to impact the rest of the world?
Well, you're not going to like me. I'm not trying to impact the rest of the world. I can't. All I can do is control those 4 things I talked about before. So if I control those 4 things within myself, then the best I can hope for is to influence someone else. But I'm not walking around trying to influence others. So leading by example, I guess, is the best answer I can give you. I wish that we weren't all so damn selfish. I wish that we weren't all so damned petty. I wish that we weren't all, and I put myself in that group like anyone else. I wish we all weren't so impatient. I wish we weren't all so rude, also self-centered, all these terrible things. So if I don't want those things, and I don't, and by the way, Dr. Williams. I've been hamstrung with idealism my entire life. So I try to be pragmatic about it as I've gotten older. So if I don't want those things and I don't, then I've got to not be those things within myself.
Very
That's the
good.
best answer I can give you.
I like it. When it's all said and done, Dar, what do you want to be remembered for?
My great big shiny forehead. I mean, look at that thing, right? Oh, by the way, did you see the picture of me as a young man?
The gold Buddha?
No, that's me. That's me as a kid. I had a thing on the top of my head. I've shaved it down.
He
Just
lost,
teasing.
he lost a lot of weight too.
I lost a little bit of weight. I did. And I lost the gold sheen, but that comes back with just a few bamboo trees and deep meditation. How would I like to be remembered? You know what? Somebody said something to me one time, completely unexpected, out of the blue. I was at a party with a friend of mine, and my wife and I went to the party. And her name is Desi Baroudi, my sweet Lebanese friend. And Desiree says to my wife, you know, if you have one friend like Dar in your life, you are lucky beyond your dreams.
So, Dar, how can we support you? Give us a way to have people connect to you so they can find out where you are, what you're doing, and what your options are to interact together.
Okay, so the best way to do that is to go to my website, dardixon.com, and leave your email address. The way you could help me the most is to buy the book when the book comes out, and I'm hoping that'll be finished within the next 6 months. I think it'll be less than that. Again, under promising, over delivering. And then if you're so inclined and you would like to have me come and speak to your people in corporate America, at a university, rehab centers, whatever it may be, you can do that as well. You can reach out to me at dardixon.com, and I'd be happy to help you any way I could. That would help me tremendously.
I'm glad that you got that word out, and we'll definitely push your availability and refer people to you, to your website. And thanks for sharing that.
Thank
What would
you.
you say about your guest experience on the show today?
I would call it a number one. Call it the best experience I've ever had. Would call it the best experience I've ever had on the Influencers podcast. How about that?
I think you probably are accurate. You've never been here before, but you will be here again in the future. I can guarantee that.
All right.
I think there's a lot more to the life of Dar.
Yes.
The Art of Being Dar is quite a voluminous book of chapters, deep and wide, and we're glad that you will be able to, grace our screen. The Influencers podcast is always looking for interesting characters, and you certainly fit the bill. Very interesting, wonderful character, and of high character, which is even better.
Thanks.
So let me give you the final word before we close off today. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
Dar.
I'm going to say it again. We are in a very trying time in our country right now. This is going to get a little political, and I hate politics. I was the first person to leave the room. I married the youngest daughter of the co-founder of the Civil Rights Movement. I am a non-religious man. She was raised as a Baptist, a Christian Baptist. I was raised in a house where my father was raised Muslim, but never practiced, thinks that religion is the cause of all war. My mother was raised as a Mormon and couldn't wait to get away from it and doesn't have anything to do with Mormonism anymore. My father-in-law was right. We hate one another. We dislike one another. We have this divisiveness because we fear one another. And we fear one another because we don't know one another. And the quickest way to bridge that is through communication. And the easiest way to have that communication is to sit down and have a meal. Have a cup of tea. Have a cup of coffee, right? Have a glass. I won't really recommend alcohol. It doesn't help because alcohol just kind of screws things up. But break bread, sit down at the table and start to talk and share ideas and listen to the other person and let them have their say, and let them know, most importantly, that you hear them. Don't just wait for them to stop talking so that you can talk. And when you do that, you find truly that we've got more in common than we've got differences. And if we do that, the sky's the limit, man.
Dar, I'll raise a cup of Java to you and be glad to sit down with you one day and do that. Thank you for being on the Influencers Podcast. A great, interesting time with you today. And I wish you all the best with your new endeavors, your new book. And we look forward to great things in the life of Dar.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. I appreciate you, Bill. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone out there in the Influencers Podcast world. And I would be honored to come back and see you. And before we go, I'm going to get him on camera right now. Listen closely. Dr. Bill, when are you going to come and speak with me on my podcast? When would now be the right time?
When would now be the time to RSVP?
Thank you.
I'd be glad to. You know, Dar,
we'll be in
my
touch.
time is your time. Anytime you call, I'm going to be right there with you.
Excellent. All right. We will be in touch. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I had fun.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it.
Thanks.
There you have it. It's the art of being Dar. Can you do better than that? I don't know. That was an exquisite interview with a friend who is just in the making, but I can see that we'll go a long way together over the next 5-10 years. Watch out for Dar. There's an art to being Dar, and not everybody can do it. What can you do? That's the question. On the Influencers Podcast, it's Dr. Bill Williams, streaming live from Atlanta, Georgia.